Well, my name is Cheryl Miller, and it was on February 12th at 2 o'clock in the morning, we got the phone call that no parent wants to get. It was a call saying that our son Travis was in a terrible motorcycle accident and they didn't know if he was going to make it. He had actually been in a wreck at about 8 o'clock that evening, but they couldn't find his emergency contact information to notify us until in the wee hours of the morning. At the time, well, still is, at the time, Travis was a captain and a pilot in the Air Force. And so his commander was the one that called us. Colonel Bell called us. He was in the ICU. We got there at 9 o'clock the next morning. He was at a level 1 trauma center in ICU. The doctors came out and told us that our son was really sick. He had suffered a broken leg. He broke his clavicle. He broke his sternum. His right eye orbital socket was blown out, but completely shattered. His cheek was shattered. His nose was broken. His jaw was broken. He had 2 basal skull fractures, 2 frontal lobe fractures, and a traumatic brain injury with 2 head bleeds. They also told us that he had a large clot in his carotid artery that would put him at risk, high risk for a massive stroke. Walking into that room and seeing him laying there, reality just slams into your face. I remember thinking, oh my gosh, what if I never hear my son's voice again? The night before, when we were going to the airport, I called several people that I knew would be okay to wake them up at 3 o'clock in the morning to ask them to pray. I called all the other kids and told them what was happening, and then of course they started praying. And I know that it's those prayers that made a difference. I know that it's because people prayed. God heard their prayers and answered them. Travis was single at the time, and he lived alone, and so somebody had to stay with him. And I was the obvious choice. I didn't know when I left on that day in February that I wouldn't be home for 2 months. But I would just post on social media things that were happening, what Travis's needed prayers were. And I tried to stay positive because I wanted people to believe that he would be healed. And so I would post the things that God was doing, that the miracles that he was doing along the way. I didn't find this out till later, and I'm glad I didn't know at the time. But they told us later that he had a less than 1% chance of living. But 1 month and 1 day after the wreck, he left rehab. And then 2 months and 1 day after the wreck, he went back to work. Now he's a major in the Air Force. He's no longer single. Last August in 2018, he married Sarah. And Travis is completely healed. He's got no lingering effects from it whatsoever. And they're expecting their first baby in March. Sometimes when I have a bad day and things get a little bit overwhelming, I just tell myself, you know what? At the end of this day, I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna call my Travis and I'm gonna hear his voice because he's alive. He's just a miracle. He's a miracle and he's a gift.